There's a reason why you may be failing to get over it. Let's talk about it. Guys, what's good with you? Welcome to the Bird Brain Podcast, where the Bird Brain. Welcome to the Bird Brain Podcast, where the goal is to rise above it all, stay elevated, create that infinity up your you. I'm your host, Isaiah, and I still forget my own intro. 5 years later, this is who I am. I am an imperfect human showing up and doing his best. It's so crazy. I laugh to myself because that is still a possibility, to make mistakes. And it's so funny. I crack up every time, y'all, because I think while it's such muscle memory, like, welcome to the Bird Brain Podcast, where the goal is to rise above it all, stay. I forgot it just now too because I was focused on it. I find that when I'm like fixated or focused, I forget a little bit more. And it's almost like if the parts of my brain, the neurons in my brain was like, they were all workers. They all left their desk to concentrate on one thing, and the work that they were doing left unattended to. And that's why I get these jumble moments. That's a very deep existential way of thinking about it, but yeah, it's funny. It's kind of funny, and I think it does tie into what I was gonna talk about today because, sometimes we focus on something so much that what we are trying to avoid is very much what we encounter, what we experience, what we endure. And especially when it comes to, you know, relationships. Definitely when it comes to relationships. I, more often than not, there are people who are still wrestling with the idea that they are affected by their ex, or they still think about their ex. It could have been a couple of years ago, it could have been a couple of months ago, a couple of weeks ago, a couple of days ago, a couple of minutes ago. And it's this thing of like, well, why am I still affected? And not even just a romantic ex. Like, it could be friendships too, y'all. It could be family. It's just people, right? When we transition out of a relationship with a person, there's remnants of that history, y'all. It's gonna be there. And the hang up that a lot of people have, the reason why most people struggle is because they are trying to rid that part of them, right? And they struggle because it's damn near impossible. You have to understand, like, the relationships in your life right now, the relationships that you've had previously, are going to influence, literally impact and influence who you become. By design, it's just what it is, right? You got to think about it. If you text someone regularly, you spend time with them, you have some level of intimacy with them, intimacy. That is an imprint on your brain. That is an imprint on your body. So it doesn't just go away because it's like your body is literally that experience. Does that make sense? I'm trying to think of it like if you take a Mr. Potato Head. Might be aging myself a little bit, but like, you take a Mr. Potato Head, or you're building some kind of prototype, like the fingers, you choose the arm, that arm is now a part of the prototype, right? And that arm could be a relationship that was significant, right? You get used to the arm being there and it functions the way it does. Okay. And let's say something happens to that arm. It gets a cut, right? Or, have a bit worse. Like the arm needs to get repaired and maybe replaced or whatever the case may be. There's still a recognition that the arm prior did a lot of things, right? You did a lot of things with that previous arm. A lot of things got accomplished with that arm. And funny enough, it's like when something's no longer there, our awareness of it is a little bit more present to a certain degree. You don't just forget. Essentially, you don't forget. And funny enough, the more you try to, the harder time you have successfully not thinking about the thing. Essentially, what you're doing is you're avoiding yourself. Right? You can't get away from yourself. You can't escape yourself. You just can't. So, how about today you just stop trying? Right? Instead of seeing the thoughts as pestering, right? Allow them to be more passive. Allow to be more passive, right? There's people in my history that come to mind. I'm like, oh, okay. The more you invite the thought, not necessarily entertain it, the more you just invite it, you let it come, the more it'll pass, right? Because you're embracing it. So therefore it has more of the potential and ability to just express itself and then move on. It's right. Like, don't think of a pink elephant. You're going to think of a pink elephant now because you're trying to resist doing that. Right? But if you think of a pink elephant, it's like, all right, cool. I thought about it. And what's my next thought? You don't keep centering on the pink elephant. You get what I'm saying? Like it has opportunity to show up and move. And the same thing applies with feelings. I think a lot of times we try so hard to not be sad, not be angry, not be all these things. And the more we do that, the more we wrestle with some level of confusion or ambiguity or just feeling stifled and stuck in terms of what's actually going on with us. You get me? So when you actually accept, yeah, I'm angry. Okay. Anger has room to show up and, kind of express itself. It takes front and center. That's one of the things I do often. When something bothers me, it bothers me. And it may not bother me in a ways of like the world is going to crash and burn because Isaiah's bothered. It's like, no, I just recognize that I'm affected by this. And I allow it to occupy space, and that's it. And it doesn't last as long for me personally. I think that's why when I do have these hangups, the process of working through it is a little bit faster because I'm not resisting. You can't do two things at once. Like, you can't resist your experience while trying to have a new one, right? It's kind of like you're holding the door closed while trying to open a door that's also across the room. You can't do both, okay? And sometimes the feeling is a little bit milder than what we think, right? You're not going to disintegrate because you are having a feeling. You're not a bad person or a weak person for thinking about your ex, right? You are not weak for caring about them, you are not going to necessarily have the relationship again. That's not what it means. It's not a sign to get back with them. It's not a sign that you've done anything wrong because you think about them. You're a human having human experiences, and who you are presently is a summation of all your experiences in the past, your memories, right? Your feelings, your thoughts. So you are going to think about people. But when you do think about them and they do come up, I want you to ask yourself, well, what is the experience that I'm having? What is the thought? Is it me entertaining this idea? Or is it just me thinking about the past? I mean, we study history in school. We have full on historians. All they do is examine the past. That's what they do for a living. You are just having a moment where somebody crosses your threshold. Doesn't mean that your life stops. It just means that, oh, okay, it's a recall, memory recall. You can ask yourself when this person comes up, what could I have done differently? What was in my responsibility? And if you did everything you were supposed to do, then you're good. But you also can't punish yourself for having feelings, right? Because the goal in that relationship of any kind, like I said, even with friendships, if you showed up and you were looking to build this friendship with the person and it didn't work out, and you feel embarrassed or guilty because, oh, I showed up and I was a friend and this person wasn't. What were you supposed to do? Be as bad as a friend as that other person? So now neither one of you guys, like, what were you trying to accomplish? Ask yourself that. Like, what are you so upset about? And when you say you wasted your time, if you see that as time wasted, then that means that you need to probably re-examine what was your goal in terms of that relationship in the first place. Because if you showed up intentionally, how are you wasting your time? You did what you were supposed to do. You did what you were supposed to do. Okay, so now what? And I want you to understand when it comes to healing and all those other things, not all of your healing has to be done in solitude and definitely not in isolation, right? We do have a responsibility to work on our wounds, work on our own awareness, work on our shortcomings, work on anything that kind of came up in our previous experiences with other people. That is our accountability, like working on that. And that's a constant work, whether you are in a new friendship, new relationship, new job, establishing your own family, whatever the case may be, you are always going to be a work in progress. Okay? Your work is constant. Your work is constant, which means that even when you show up in another relationship, you are still doing the work. And that's also a misconception too. Like, you have to be fully healed to be in a relationship. No, you don't. That doesn't make sense because there's no such thing as being fully healed. There may be some things you have to really examine and like really do the work to process and move through. So when your next relationship, the next person you are choosing to spend time with and develop a bond with is not a replica of your previous experiences. These people are not repetitive patterns of your trauma, your history that you say you were trying to move away from. Because sometimes that's why we have a reoccurring experience, because we are choosing the same people in different bodies. You get me? If you want to get over something, you got to let it hit. Otherwise, everybody else is going to be sacrificed. Everybody else. That's why there's so many, like, essentially broken people walking around in the world. Because no one is doing the work to just feel what they need to feel. They are kind of expecting other people to distract them from it. They're expecting other people to fix them, right? Or fix the experience. They're putting the demand on someone new to repair what someone else broke, right? We do a lot of interesting things. We just have to understand what we're doing and how we're doing, right? Just because we physically are not in each other's presence does not mean that emotionally, spiritually, we're not still connected. And just because somebody did not have the capacity to care for you properly doesn't mean that you should be just as careless, right? Just as thoughtless. Because how are you any better than that person? How are you any different than the person that hurt you if you are becoming exactly who they are for somebody else to endure and experience, right? We got to think about that. Like, if your justification for why you are the way that you are is because other people have hurt you and disappointed you and let you down. Okay, cool. So what are you expecting from other people then? What are you expecting for other people? From other people? Stop trying to get over things. And that's not the same thing as dwelling, right? That's not the opposite. You know, I think for me is like I don't dwell on things. I recall them. Yeah, they're definitely there. However, there's no dwelling. It's like, all right, cool. This is here. It's gonna pass. It sucked. But it's all good because I'm here. But I can still recognize that this was a point in time that was very crucial, very pivotal. But here we are now. What did I learn? What did I learn? How significant was that experience? That person was significant, I'm sure, right? And I'm talking about like deep relationships, y'all. I'm not just talking about, you know, interactions on social media. Because, I think, and I'll keep reminding you guys of this, a lot of times people on social media are just projecting and they don't have what's what I'm looking for, the bravery or courage to have those exchanges with the people in their lives. They probably have exhausted all of the people in their lives, so they don't have people around. There's a lack of emotional maturity. There's a lack of awareness. There's a lacking of things. So they fill up that space with that, right? So getting caught up in those things and holding firm to that, you know, that's different. That's not as significant as you think. Some of these people you'll never meet, right? And I remind myself of that constantly. It's like, this person doesn't know me. So for them to be so deeply affected in a negative way, it's not about me. And I think it's also important to understand, even in your personal relationships, it's not about you and it's not about them in certain dynamics, right? I recognize for me, even in some of my own exchanges, like it wasn't fully about the other person. It was something under it. There was definitely an underlying thing. Okay. Um, we don't necessarily get to choose how things may. What's what I'm looking for? how do I say this? We don't get to choose how information may affect us, but we do get to choose how we examine it and what we do about it, right? A thought pops up for me about a person. I mean, I wasn't like trying to think about them, but here they are. All right. I don't have to do anything about it. I could just let that thought be what it is. All right, cool. Here you are. And there you go. That's okay, right? I don't punish myself for having human experiences, right? I don't punish myself for caring about people. Right? I don't punish myself for still having to learn certain things about myself and my behaviors. There's no punishment there. There's accountability, yes. There's awareness, absolutely. But there's no punishment. If you're already hurting about something or someone, why would you hurt yourself even more by saying that you're wrong? You're wrong for caring about this person. That's dumb. That's stupid. Get over it. Like, what are you doing? And then you want somebody to come along and love you. It's like, how are you helping them out? How are you helping the people out that are coming into your life? Like, how are you helping them to love you properly? What does that look like? What assistance are you offering? Because if you cannot be at peace with the fact that you are having a painful thought or a moment of just kind of like sadness, for someone that was important to you and they're no longer in your life, how are you going to treat somebody else when they have a moment like that in their lives? Are you a safe space for them? And if you say yes, then is that the full truth? Because how we treat ourselves is usually going to indicate how we treat others to some degree. Right? So, just all things to think about. If you want to get over something, stop trying to get over it. You can get familiar with it. You can get over the idea that you could get over the fact that it affects you. Get over it. You're bothered? Awesome. You're sad? Awesome. You're angry? Dope. You're happy? Cool. Like, we can't only invite the happy feelings, right? We don't exist on that. We don't learn from that stuff either. The reason why is, for some reason, we just don't, the value system in terms of like good is not always the thing that sticks for us. That's why gratitude is so hard. Right? Get over trying to get over it. How about you just don't? Okay. Thought comes up, experience comes up. All right, cool. This is here. Do I have to do anything about it right now? Probably not. Stop trying to escape yourself while punishing yourself. Because the punishment doesn't fit the crime. And you caring and you wanting a connection that didn't work is not a crime. It sucks. However, it's not a crime. Sometimes for either party, just because something doesn't work out doesn't mean that the other person's bad. Stop trying to make other people bad people. Because sometimes it's not the case, right? This was just a person that meant a lot to you. And now you guys have a different relationship. And sometimes it doesn't look like one at all. doesn't mean that they're not important to you. And it doesn't mean that you're weak to be able to still recognize that this person is important to me. Actually, you're probably stronger for it. So just something to think about. Good talk, y'all. Good talk. I think I was just like thinking about this for myself, thinking about this for conversations I've had with other people. Like the goal is to not get over things in the ways that you think. Because when people say get over, they're actually trying to escape. You can't escape yourself, so stop trying. Okay. If you want somebody to show up and love you for who you are, how are they going to do that if you were spending a lot of your time escaping yourself? Two things can't be done at once. Okay. So take care of yourselves. Very much so. Okay. Really take care of yourselves. If you want to sign up for coaching because these are things that you're working through, hit me up. The link is in the bio. I'm accepting new clients. The holiday season is coming around and things always get weird anyway. So, this is a time where I usually have a pretty solid client roster. And if you're looking to work through things to equip yourself for the holidays and whatever may come, or just the new year and new life, new season, link is in the bio. Book a session, book a call. If you book a discovery call, the day is usually Wednesdays, okay? 15-minute consultation. Get some things sorted through. And see if we are able to work together. Or if you just want to dive right into it, book a session. I have the about me in terms of how I work, my process, what I'm equipped with to help. And you can read that and get on a phone call, see if that works, and then go from there. But slowly. Actually, my roster is building pretty quickly. So get on it. If you were looking to move through some things, let's do that. All right. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and take flight.